Happy Tuesday, everybody. Rodney Wilds, how are you this snowy day?
I am fantastic. How are you doing?
I am, you know what? I'm pumped. Johnny's here with us, Johnny Midas, with a name like that. It's got to be everything he touches turned to gold. That's what I'm thinking.
That's a pretty good name.
I like
He's
it.
probably never heard that though.
he's never heard that. What's new with you? Did you have to drive through any kind of stormy weather to get to work today?
Nothing. It was it came down pretty good last night, coated, the cars and the grass, but by the time I left 8ish, it's pretty much melted or all melting. So
Yeah.
the sun's out right now. There's not a thing of ice out or snow out there.
Sun's out, guns out. Come on, guns out, guns out. That's right. I'm ready for that. What the heck did I see this morning already? Since we opened the show with rates today, we're going to do Rodney's rates right where it belongs. But what did I see something over 7? I did see something over 7 this morning.
Yes, you probably did. It's you want to jump right on in?
Okay, let's do. Bing, bye. There we go.
Nice. Well, right here you can see this is the last. Let's see here. I think 3 months of how the market's moved. So this is November 15th, about the time it started getting really. We've seen a huge improvement right here over a span of a month, November to December. And it has kind of leveled off here, and then you can see as soon as February hits, inflation's great, all this other stuff, and so our rates have taken a little bit of a hit since this right here. Mm-hmm. Everybody is expecting a rebound and things to settle out and start getting better, but definitely over this start of February. What is this? Let's go ahead and look at this from right here, 101.21 to today. Mm-hmm. So it's lost about 100 basis points. Mm-hmm. That's probably, like 0.3% in rate for most people. So,
bear with me. I've got a phone call that I've got to hang up on.
Is that your ring doorbell or something? Somebody's playing in the grass again out there?
No, that was my phone. I forgot to focus us, but now we're all done. They're gone.
But that's where we're hanging at right now. We're taking a little bit on the chin today. 49 basis points down means wherever we started at, it's gotten about 49 basis points worse. So lenders will reprice this today and issue new pricing sometime today for us.
Right. And so I think it would probably be appropriate to go from here to part of the reason maybe that it jumped today, because we talk about things being built in, right? Lenders and all the rest build things in. Angie, hello, got to stop for a second, say hi to my girl, Angie, California. Sunshine, Angie. Hope you're doing well. Survived the rains. We were just talking about the rates tipping over 7 for a lot of folks, Anyway, and as we've been talking about for the last little while, that I believe, and it's clearly we're seeing this, that it's going to be bouncing between 6.5, and I'm making up 6.5 because I don't have any reason to pick 6.5, but it's going to be bouncing between that 6.5 and a 7 for a while, and then everybody's going to be touchy. And then, of course, today was inflation numbers, right? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And so what happened? Yeah, inflation rose a bigger than expected 3.1 in January versus it was supposed to be 2.9, I believe. Is that correct?
Something, yeah. It's definitely larger than expected. So, again, we've had those signals where the Feds didn't want to lower the rates until March, and now the inflation's coming back a little bit higher. So, it is what it is. I wasn't expecting any really help right now, but it's crazy. We just won't quit spending money, and I'm in that category. It's Amazon needs to go under or something, and that way maybe.
Yeah. Oh, that would. Damn, that was, whoo, golly.
It would help me. right. I
I,
ain't saying, it may crush 50 million Americans, but I'm like, man, those prime boxes, I get them all
but
the
I'd
time.
be better. Yeah. I have to tell you that, and we've been talking recently about Jerry's adjustments, and I call them Jerry's, the boards, the FOMC, and all that kind of stuff. The decisions they're making with the Fed funds rate, and will it have an impact? And are they going too far? And have they gone too far? And will they cut soon enough? And I mean, that's all crazy stuff. But here's what today, based on what we've been learning, right? And there's a guy that I'm afraid I would qualify for this, Logan Motoshami on Housing Wire, says that's a bunch of old guys making slow decisions. And he's not really being rude. That's just his take on the way they're handling the economy. Back like that other guy. We keep wanting to bring his name up, and I forget it every time. What was that guy's name?
Which one?
The one was like 30, 40 years ago, real famous economist that shook the heck out of it. I'll think of it. I had his name earlier. What?
Not Greenspan, right?
No. It was the other guy.
Yeah.
I can't think of it. While you're talking, I'm going to Google that for sure. But anyway, so everybody, with today's interest rate, I mean, with today's CPI, see, that threw me off. I threw myself a curve. That means that if they're going to be acting old and slow, what do you predict that means on rate cuts?
Old and slow would indicate that they're going to be very tight-lipped about anything their future plans are. They, unlike the last several months, they've been, pretty much preaching it's going to be March or April that they've had a cut, and very slow to do anything to move the ship. Like we've talked about, we're trying to guide this big, aircraft carrier out in the ocean, right? And it doesn't turn fast. So, and that's, they want to turn it, but not too fast to hurt inflation or whatever. So, and they haven't, right? They just talked about it, and inflation's already going up. So, being tight-lipped may be the way to do it, and slow to make changes is the way I take it.
Well, but I think I believe, and we'll move on to the next topic here in a second. But I think that based on what we're seeing, and I'm not an economist, and I say this every week, so why am I talking about it? Because I can't help but read it, because it affects my life, because it affects all of our lives, whether we're students of it or not, is beside the point. To stay on top of the news, it's important to me, so that's why we talk about this stuff. But there's always these jukes and jives and these changes, and that's what we're keeping an eye on. And then today really was just another one. There was a comment today that I was watching on one of the business channels. I like to watch Fox and CNBC. I think they're good. But there were people on Wall Street predicting seven cuts by the Fed this year. Now, I don't know that has any basis in reality. 7 of them.
Yeah, I don't know if it has any basis in reality, but I like to hear it.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, but, I think we got a 25-cent bet that I've got to have 5 or more or something like that. Anyway.
I think I went for 3. I think I went for 3, and I think you went for 4, and and our friend Philip went for 3 as well, I think.
So, yeah, I would love to see that many cuts. I don't know necessarily where they stand on with that, but I don't. Who knows about that? Especially with inflation just turned right around. It'd been dipping down, and then all of a sudden it went the other way. So,
Yeah, but it's not a lot, you know. I mean, it's 0.2 of a point or whatever. I mean, it's 3.1 was supposed to be what they were projecting is 2.9, and if I'm not mistaken, they can run those numbers again, and sometimes there are adjustments down the road as they improve their numbers.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're over 7 today, big deal. And you know what? So what? That's to be now. We have come to expect it. So moving on to the next topic, if we can. But we've got to do this. This is like my favorite thing. We're going to talk about the news and stuff like. I mean, those are nice colors. Those are really good. So let's look at this. Today, I thought we'd do this. This is what we're going to try to do. And we're going to do this 2 ways. Yes. Do this, that. Huh. That's interesting. There we go. I may take our pictures out of there if the screen gets wonky. So that's what's going on. So this is what I thought we'd try today. Again, full transparency, Redfin is a brokerage, and I'm not at all promoting them. But I do, as a company, I like the data that they collect. They do a really good job on that. Since I'm a broker too, we're all one big happy family, just put it that way. So, but I do take advantage of the studies that they create for all of us. Now, there is a limitation. Now, this is, again, full transparency. When Redfin makes these predictions and pull these numbers, it really is based on their company. And it's not all inclusive like if it was all of us together. So it's a good size sampling, and I think it's fair. And they're pretty close to right on. Between them and Zillow, they do a real good job. Again, I'm not promoting these guys, but I am saying they're trustworthy data-wise. Are we okay with that, Rodney? You all right with that?
It sounds like you're promoting them, but we can move on.
Okay, good. I won't say their name again. So what this article is about is they're making predictions for what's coming up in 2024. Now, a lot of people, we kind of had a fun fun show last year where we had 24 different prediction models, and most all of them were different. Little up, little down. I can tell you that generally speaking, the brokerage models, meaning Realtor.com, the National Association of Realtors, all those guys, these guys, they're all pretty positive for the most part. The Wall Street guys weren't quite so nice about it. But it turns out brokers were right. So we're going to look at some of these predictions, read through this a little bit, comment on what they have to say, and then we're going to look at what I believe is I think Nashville's a fair cross-section of the mainstream cities across the country, would you say? Rodney?
Yeah, I'd say it's on the upper end of those. I'd say Nashville's probably one of the higher, maybe not in the top 20 higher priced ones, but definitely on the higher end of that.
And I thought it would be a better I thought for us, because it's local, it would be a better representation than anything in Williamson County, because Williamson County is over the top,
100%,
So
yeah.
And so that was the whole point on this. And the whole idea here is it's the second week of February. We showed 5 homes here just a few days ago. And I'm telling you, some of them were on the market 3 days. One of them was on the market 90 days. And they were all nice houses. So if somebody tells you that they're flying off the shelf, that's not necessarily the case. It just depends on condition and price. That's it. So the first prediction that Redfin's coming up with, and that's the last time I swear to God that I'm going to say is their name, is their prediction is going to be home prices will fall 1%. Prices will fall 1% year over year in the second and third quarters. We've got a ways to go for that. When the home selling season is in full swing, that'll mark the first time prices have declined since 2012, when the housing market was recovering from the Great Recession, with the exception of a brief period in the first half of 2023. That's a favorable shift for buyers. Prices ending in 23 ended up 3% year over year, and the typical home buyer's monthly payment is only about $150 difference from then. Home prices will still be out of reach for many Americans, but bleak in the affordability crisis is a welcome development nonetheless. Do you see that way, Rodney?
No, I don't. Now they could go. Could it happen 100%? But no, I don't. And look, it's like if you go the third and fourth quarter of what we just went through, to me, may have represented the worst. In January, I don't include January, even though it's a different year, but I include these last 3 months we've been through, probably some of the worst months we've ever had. Mm-hmm. Now, and that's a 2.6 and a 3.0 growth. We don't have Q1's numbers, but for them to expect it to go from a 3.0, it's going up, and then all of a sudden it's got to go down, and then it's got to go negative. So no, I don't see that.
And I'm trying to figure out what they're not saying what the logic is, because or am I missing it?
Well, I think in the whole article it kind of says that they expect a whole lot more listings, and to the point that there are listings already out there and they're not flying off the shelf, that would create a little bit. It definitely help the demand, but it's not. To me, to think that we're going to have in a decreasing rate environment, the home prices go down after what we've experienced, just where we're at. No, I don't see it.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I think it's either going to be flush or up a little bit, and
right.
and the fact, and this is what the Nashville markets is showing, that it's flat through December of 23. That's what that is. That was. I wanted it to do better. In Franklin and Brentwood, they had later dates. So anyway, that's what they're showing for that. This may not be what I want. All right, I have to agree with that. New listings will tick up. Home prices will fall because supply. Okay, will fall because supply will rise more in demand. We've certainly seen a double-digit annual increase in homeowners contacting some companies for help selling their home, and that's just contact calling. Listings will climb from 2023's record low as the mortgage rate lock-in effect eases. As it comes down, okay, new listings will tick up. Do we believe that?
I do.
I do too.
I do. I believe listings will tick up, and not necessarily because of lock-in effect. That will ease some. But like we've talked about the whole time, there's so much pent-up demand as rates get into the sixes. It's going to create more people coming off the shelf, I think, to sell their home.
Yep. This may not work the way I wanted. Okay, so home sales will increase, and the year will end up 5%. Well, this last year they ended up at first quarter was 3.7 last year, I think, something like that. And they're expecting it to go up on pace for 4.1 to end the year at 4.5. Man, that's a lot of growth.
So, yeah, well, the 4.5, it is the 4.5 a great year or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I think
it's better.
Okay. Well, okay, so we ended up, I don't know where we ended up last year, but ended up 5%. Sure, I think we could end up 5%. I think we'll have a better year in 24. So 5% is not a stretch to me.
It's not a stretch, yeah. And I mean, and then the key is going to be, it's right here. I mean, the way this is dovetailed together nicely, mortgage rates steadily decline but remain above 6%. I couldn't agree more with that particular. And who knows? I mean, who knows?
Right.
But I mean, we just bounced over 7, so.
Right.
We're not in a big rush to get down to 6, meaning mechanics of it all.
No, I don't think anybody's looking at anything through the first quarter. but I don't think we're going to meander much into March without the Feds doing something like, and probably stating when they're next going to. And then when they do, it will affect us. But I think number 4 right here, prediction number 4, if this number 4 happens, this is what's going to drive the train for everything else.
I agree with that. Now here we can, this we can kind of get into a little bit here. There's changes coming to the real estate industry for anybody that's like, and I don't mean to be unkind, but anybody that's been under a rock and has any interest in real estate, there are changes, there are lawsuits flying around. They're just crazy. And what's happening is NAR and a bunch of other big companies have been sued for basically collusion on commissions. And the things that are, and some of them have already settled out of court, like the Burnett case. I think they settled for, or Keller Williams settled for $70 million. There's a lot of money flying around. People are settling and they're waiting to get approval from the judge. But here's what the changes are, at least from the commission side. And if you're reading through that, Rodney, you can chime in with what it's talking about. Here's my point on what's going to change. For anybody that's thinking about buying a house, what's going to be happening down the road, it looks like, where in the past, a home seller would cover the cost of the buyer's agent. That's what has always traditionally happened. That's 6% when it's paid by the seller gets split between the buyer agent and the selling agent. That's how it's worked. But these lawsuits are bringing that possibly to a close. I can't say that definitively because we don't know yet. But if that does change, all of a sudden, the houses that are listed will have the ability to do one of two things, or probably more, but they can pay for the buyer's agent, which will bring buyers to their house, or they can choose not to pay a penny, and the buyer themselves would have to pay for the buyer's agent, adding to the cost of their, I'm going to call it closing costs, but to the purchase of their home. Mm-hmm. That is going to, and I'll stop because we don't know any more facts than that.
Yeah.
But when that happens, for anybody that's buying a house, if you're fringy, meaning you don't have $1 million to spend, you've saved up your money and you're ready to go, where in years past, if you bought a $400,000 house, that's a $12,000 commission for the buyer. The seller used to pay that, still does currently. But in the near future, they may stop doing that. And so if a home buyer, hires a buyer's agent, it's going to cost you an extra $12,000 on top of earnest money, down payment, repairs, insurance, inspections, all the rest of it. So it's an additional $12,000, and that could carve a lot of people or push a lot of people away from the market. Do I have that close, Rodney?
Yes, it would. It would push a lot of people out. I mean, and as far as the prediction, I think they should have termed it something. Let's see how this turns out, because the change is already here. This has already happened. It's already going on right now. We just don't know how it's going to flush out. Right. We don't know if every seller out there is just going to all of a sudden unanimously say, I'm not paying a buyer's agent, because I'm still in flux. If I'm a seller, my goal is to sell this house as fast as I can and for as much as I can. Right. And sometimes one of those factors way more than the other. Right. So if I have just the way it is now, where when I take on a listing, I realize I'm paying a listing agent fee and a buyer's agent fee. I'm paying someone to market the house for me, and then I'm going to pay somebody to bring a buyer to me, right? So that's what I'm paying for, I think, as the two sides, as a layman, as a customer, right? So I don't know how a seller is going to go, well, I want to save the money, so I'm going to pay you to list it, but I'm not going to pay anybody to bring me a buyer. And it's like, well, what do you mean? I mean, that's where you actually are going to get your money's worth, is like somebody bringing you a buyer, to buy your house as a seller. So I'm waiting to see how this whole thing plays out, but the change is already here. It's already going down. So we'll see how it goes.
And from my side, meaning the realtor side of this thing, all of a sudden, because the most important thing that a real estate agent or a realtor can do is disclose. I mean, that's of all the jobs that we have, it's creating a system of transparency. And these lawsuits, that's kind of what they're fighting. They're acting like there was no transparency with the pricing and the way that it worked. Now, to be fair, I can understand kind of where these sellers were coming from, but they're not in the industry. They're customers. And I understand how they could feel like they're getting. One guy I got to be honest with you, had a pretty good argument, and here's how it went. It said, you're asking me to pay $15,000 to hire somebody else to come in and negotiate my price to get lower. Well, you know what? There's truth to that.
There is 100%. Yes.
I'll tell you that would be a showstopper in terms of an argument. I have to go, you're right.
it is, but the reason, this isn't the first time, this system wasn't just a happenstance system that they come up with this way. The reason it is like this is because it's extreme. Down payment is the number one problem for most buyers. Okay. And now we've added a 3% commission or a 2% or whatever they can negotiate for. Now we've added additional costs to buy the house outside of the house. Like, now first of all, you can't just buy the house. You got to have appraisal, you have title work, you got to have insurance, you got to pay taxes, you got to have attorneys to sign when you have a loan. And now you're saying, on top of all those costs, you're going to be paying a real estate agent fee now. So, and then what's going to happen? They're going to avoid it. They're not going to get the real estate agent service because they might not say it's worth it. But that's pennies on the dollar for what a real estate agent can save them. It's like, but going back to I'll tell you what I think is kind of weird is. It's the access to the information, to me, that colludes it. Not paying 3% or 3%, because that, to me, it's always been negotiable. If I'd have said, if I interview an agent and they say, well, I'm going to charge 9%, I have the right to say no, take. So, but what I feel like as the customers is that we don't have access to the NMLS, and that's pretty much the only place that sells houses. That's what and then you've got to be a broker to access it. So that's kind of not necessarily the collusion on the pay. It's like, I'm not in your system if I don't use a real estate agent. And that's that's the only problem I've ever seen with it, is like, I don't ever have access to the all of the information that you guys have.
Yeah. But that's beginning to change, and that's where these national portals are starting to come around. They're starting to produce national portals. Like I saw one the other day. I can't even think of it. I should have written it down. But it's a national portal. I mean, kind of like Zillow in a way.
Yeah.
But of all these things, now understand that this stuff is down. It hasn't. Like you said, it's already here, but it hasn't. The wholesale changes have not been adopted. And Angie asked a really good question, because we're going to have to camp out on this for a little bit here. With these changes, do you think agents will go back to listing and selling? Well, let's do that. Let me see. If I have to pay both, then the percentage will have to be a negotiation. And that's the truth. I mean, here's the risk, and this, it's called unintended consequences. I think that, again, that seller, whoever started it with that argument I gave a second ago, I got to tell you, that's a fairly bulletproof argument. If it was me, I'd be.
I mean, as a seller, as a seller, that's the arrow. You got, they've got a point with that.
And it's a good one. However, there's more to the story, and here's what it is. I don't believe it was until the 90s that there was actual buyer's agents, that there wasn't anybody to protect the buyer. And if you think that you can, I have to be careful how I would say this. Do you believe that there would be, and you answer this, put this in the comments. Do you think that there would be a problem if there was a listing agent listing a house and you as a buyer came up to that listing agent and said, I'd like to buy this house? Whose side do you think that the listing agent is on? I'm telling you, by contract, they're on the seller side. Now, they can change their status. They can change it to a facilitator where it's like they're sort of playing both sides against the middle. In your opinion, I'm just asking, would you as a buyer feel protected?
I mean, yeah. You're asking Angie that one, right?
I'm asking the world that. I'm saying anybody that is even watching this after the fact, answer the question, would you feel protected if you were talking? And listing agents are good people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say anybody's not, but I'm talking about.
But a listing agent's job, if I hire a listing agent to sell my home, that listing agent's job is to get me. They essentially work for the seller.
Correct.
And the seller wants the most money usually out of that house. So, I get it. You can waive, and sometimes that's somebody can come in and they can be a facilitator or whatever. But you've already negotiated. You've already got the job with the seller, meaning that you've already agreed to get them to whatever they've agreed to, or at least try, right? Mm-hmm. So even if you change a piece of paper, you haven't changed your status with the seller. Right. You haven't gone back to them and say, hey, listen, I'm just letting you know I'm fixing to negotiate against you on this.
Well, and so what is suggested is that when somebody comes up, a buyer, and if they are bound and determined to buy the house without an agent, and that, which leads into this is a good topic, really, which leads this into a lot of people are going to be forced because of dollars. If they like house A, and it's $500,000, and it would cost them $15,000 to hire an agent, their tendency is going to say, I'm not going to do that. And so they'll approach this listing agent, and the listing agent said, well, I'll take you on as an unrepresented buyer. That's a different thing, because they're still an agent for the seller, and you're an unrepresented buyer, which couldn't be more clear in what it means.
Right.
You're not fully protected.
But, yeah. I mean, it's going to be weird because it's like, I don't know. I just don't see how a seller can list it without any money going to the buyer's agent. Like, I just don't see how that's going to happen.
Well, let's keep going on this for a little bit, because I mean, these are, and Angie's asked. She's asked the question number one that Rodney, you and I spoke about a month ago or so. You were the one that thought of this. When it comes to military, at least in the United States, there's a lot of things that they're disallowed to pay. And I'm pretty sure buyer's agent fees would be one of them.
It might be. That may be in the VA guides. I'll have to double check on that. That's a good point.
I mean, so that would be, if you're trying to use a VA loan, then that would be unavailable to you.
Right. You just, yeah. What's going to happen is the exact what they do now is build it into the sales price like that. You've already, when you go and list your house, you're generally paying those fees, the buyer and seller fees.
Now because
Realtor fees.
because you do a lot at volume, are you seeing more of fees getting rolled into the purchase price? I mean, has appraisals become less of an issue on the upper end?
Appraisals haven't really been an issue at any time, because even when people were offering way over value, they were dealing. They knew they were coming in, and everybody talked about appraisal gaps and dealt with that on the front end. But no, I'm not. I haven't really seen much change at all with how a listing or a contract looks from the time that the courts made their ruling to today. I haven't seen a significant change one way or the other that says, that people are trying to get out of paying the listing agents or the selling agents or any of that.
And now, Angie, I'm going to get to your question in a second about going back, but I got a question, Rodney, on this. It used to be that we could roll in costs X amount of dollars, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 over the purchase price, and then have the seller kick it back to help out the buyer in a lot of cases.
As like seller paid closing cost?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that way the seller didn't feel like they were getting robbed and the buyer was getting the help that they needed, and it was all done on the back of the lender. I mean, the house purchase price. Mm-hmm. But with the way that that home values and appraisals have, pushed to the top so quickly here the last few years, do you see that still happening? Is my question muddy enough?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, and it's I see it more coming up maybe after an inspection, and then like I'll give you an example is like we had a loan and then everything was normal, just a purchase, no seller concessions, and all of a sudden we have an inspection, and then there was like a $10,000 closing cost addendum. Right. So the seller agreed to probably pay some closing costs instead of saying fixing the concrete around the pool or something.
Right. Right.
So I'm seeing more of that, which is still affects the sales price, but they're not so bumped up against the top of the sales market that somebody can't negotiate in some closing costs.
Okay. So if a house was, I'm going to keep pushing on this because I'm trying to get clarity. If I had a $450,000 contract and then all of a sudden the buyer needed $10,000, are you saying that a contract would go, it would fly for $460,000?
Well, I mean, obviously, a lot of it's done on the front end, right? So if I know the person's going to need the $10,000 going in, we've already said that I've already given like the pre-approval letter and told you like, hey, when we write this contract, we have to have $10,000 in closing costs. Mm-hmm. So we know that when we're going in. So we might know if we can look at the comps just like anybody else and see if we think there's going to be an appraisal issue. Okay. I mean, but typically I have seen closing costs written in contracts now. It's becoming more and more regular again, and we're not having appraisal issues. So the bottom line is it's going fine. There is some adding in, and sellers are sometimes just paying it, to get their house sold.
To get it, yeah. I think we're saying two different things. I think is what's happening, and that's okay. What you're saying is people are paying closing costs again, where a few years ago, forget it, hit the road, pal.
Right.
But now they're doing that. I got that. I'll stop beating you up about the other thing. So let's see if help me decipher this. But if it goes back to them doing both, then it wouldn't matter.
Is she saying if the real estate agent goes back to doing both listing and selling, it wouldn't matter?
Well, I'm not crystal clear on what both listing and selling. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the argument, and that's what we're trying to parse out here.
Yeah.
Is that in order and Rodney, just check me on this because I'm out in space at this point here. Well, the argument that I'm trying to make at any rate is the change that's coming for buyers, not all buyers, but the buyers that don't have an extra $15,000 laying around, or somebody that isn't savvy. My concern is somebody that's never bought a house before and not savvy at all about how it's supposed to work. And when you have a listing agent and they're good people and their intention as well is good, but still when they sign to list a house, to sell a house, they're working for the seller. We talked about that before. You can change something on a piece of paper, but in your head, you're still working for the seller. At least the seller's going to think that. Even when you explain to them, hey, I'm a facilitator now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but wink, wink. That's where you're coming from. But to have a buyer agent that a lot of times people think that that real estate goes so smooth because agents have become very good at working together. And between lenders and title companies and appraisers and inspectors, and those of us that have been around a while, we usually have a team of vendors where things work so smooth to the end user, you think that there's no problems. But the fact is, behind the scenes, there are all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, for a lot of us agents and a lot of lenders, there's a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah, I mean you're saying it right. I mean that's why you use the smooth ones. Means you had a good agent, right? I mean it's like, but
here's my point, and let me before I lose the thread, because it goes through so smooth. Somebody will think, well, I can do that, well, we're going to find out. And then when you're doing it on your own, unrepresented, you're going to be hit with a lot of questions that, even though the listing agent is required to explain the definition, there's still a salesperson at this point. They won't leave you hanging out there completely. You've still got to make decisions on your own because they can't make it for you.
Yes. And your point of when a customer has to bring in more money, it knocks a lot of people out, to your point. And number two, a lot of people, first of all, who doesn't think 15,000 is a lot of money and wouldn't want to save 15,000? Because when you say 15, if you say, okay, would you rather have a real estate agent or would you rather have all new appliances? Or, but it ain't a fair statement, because a real estate agent is going to could save you from buying a house that has terrible, something going on that just is really saves your butt on it, right? Mm-hmm. And you have nobody representing you. So that's the problem to me, Andy, is like 15,000 or the saving of 3% of that house immediately goes to anybody's head thinking what they can buy for that house or whatever, right? Savings or whatever. So that's the difficult part. And then they're going to go unrepresented, like you said. They're going to start going to the listing agent and buying there, or the agents that they are working with are not going to find houses that don't pay them, right? I mean, they're never going to show them a house because they know they can't afford it. So now they get less, they get potentially not represented, less markets on the house view. So there's a potential stuff going on with that that's just not, I'm kind of concerned about seeing how it shakes out.
Yeah, and that's the unintended consequences, because now as a listing agent, when you, as a seller in general, when you hire an agent to sell your house, there's a whole nother level of questions that you have to answer is, are you willing to pay 3%, just like you said, Rodney, to make sure that those people who are and are not able to carry that difference are willing and able to see my house, to possibly buy it?
Yeah.
Because if you don't offer that, a huge chunk, Maybe not the executive homes, maybe. But if it's an executive home and it's $1 million house, is somebody's tendency to save $30,000 real? Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
I
Even
mean,
if you've got it.
right.
That's a
That's the whole point. Is like every single person that looks attractive to, which may lend itself to using the listing agent exclusively, unrepresented.
yeah. It's just if you had your druthers to spend 30 or save 30, and you've got two houses, one's offering and one's not.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you the idea of the century, Andy. Here's what you're gonna do:
I'm ready. Taking
is
notes.
we're gonna cancel all listing agents, and you're just gonna be a buyer's agent, and you're just gonna take buyers to houses that are unlisted and sell them. You know, I mean, that's the thing. If you're going to cut out one side, cut out the listing side, and have somebody bring you a buyer. That's the one you want to do.
Yeah,
I mean, at least you get it sold that way, right?
yeah, God, we could, that'd be a good business. I think some other companies are trying to do that. It's an amazing thing. And the last thing I'll say about this, because of all the articles, of all the points that this particular article was making, in the long term, what we're talking about is the one that's going to shake things up for the most, and in the end, it's going to come back. It's going to end up where it started, but it's going to be real bloody messy for a while. I just have no doubt about that. I mean, or some version of it, you know. Oh God, that completely blew out what I was thinking. I forgot entirely. I was going to make a point. Anyway, that was good stuff. So Angie, the answer is being protected, being represented or not. Like going to court and you're up against a judge and a prosecutor and you got nobody standing in the breach for you. So I want a lawyer, depending on what I did, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree.
The next, there's just a couple more points and we're almost done anyway. It says renting is going to lose its stigma. The reason, how come? Gee, I wonder why. We were just talking about that. $15,000 is pretty much close to a year's worth of rent, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, and this is crazy. It's crazy that, but it's true. Um, More and more people that I've talked to in the past are like, "I'll just rent," and it used to be a nasty word. People used to even hate saying it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I hate renting because they know they're losing the kind of wealth that you generate from owning a home, right? So it's right, but I hate it. I wish people, because home ownership is the greatest way to build wealth. It has
Hey,
been.
you want to try something? We've got technology on our side here. We're going to try something here, Rodney, and see if this works. up is, geez, we got a lot of calculators in there too. With renting losing its stigma, it's because in the end, and you and I have spoken about this, with buyers being up against it, and I don't feel good at all for first-time home buyers.
It's a good time right now, though, Andy. I mean, you can still get a decent FHA rates are below that 7%, and it's a good time for home buyers right now. You can negotiate. The prices are low as they're going to be, and if they're talking about that you save 1% next year, man, what if it goes up 4%? A $400,000 house at $16,000. So you just wait. You've wasted a ton. And then plus you're 1/5 away from not having that 180,000 net equity that you had in 5 years down the road, So
I don't know what happened.
Angie, what happened?
Did our system go out or something?
We've been sitting here talking to ourselves.
No, we're live, I think. Oh God, that's about it. But what I was talking about is moving forward into this commission thing. It's a great time to buy a house, probably now more than ever, because of some of the changes that are just around the corner. And that's all we're talking about. Is that's going to be a big change in the next. It's going to take a year or two for that to flush it out of our system. So,
yeah, and that calculator just needs to be ran individually, because like the calculator I have will put in whatever zip code or whatever listing it is and factor in that area's appreciation and stuff. And so that way you're really not guessing, that way you get a little bit more localized on those calculators, and then put your sales price in there and your down payment, and customize it to you.
reverse engineering the thing,
Yeah.
Be pretty cool. I'm exhausted. I've been flying around out in space, flapping my wings a little bit too much there. Oh, God. How fun.
Welcome back to Earth. It was a good show today. Nice job.
That was fun. Hey, Ange, I don't send me an email. You know my email. If something happened to the broadcast, just let me know. Rodney, any final thoughts?
No, appreciate you not bringing up the Niners getting busted up by the Chiefs over the weekend. We had a good season, and the Swifties took us down. So, I mean, what do you do? The rich get richer. That's all you can say.
I got to tell you, though, Brock Purdy's going to be making a little extra. Is he free agent next year?
No, he was, this is his, I guess his second full year. He was the last pick in the NFL draft. Yeah. So he actually, there's nobody at the Super Bowl made less than him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But trust me, I think he's going to be okay.
He's going to be okay now. He's going to be all right. Yeah. His confidence is up there. Yeah. I was heartbroken as well. We happened to be pulling for the same guys. So, Rodney, that was fun. What a great day. Ange, thank you for being here. Johnny, good to see you. Phil and Wendy, if you're snooping around out there someplace, we're saying hi to you. And I hope everybody does well. We'll see you next Tuesday. Here comes that outro. So,